Okay, good evening, everybody. It is, well, here it's Thursday, December 19th. I'm in Sweden.
Interesting.
Yeah, there it should be December 18th, Wednesday at 7 p.m. This is Sahavas for everyone on Baba Zoom. Tonight we have a very special guest, Michelle McKeever. I'm going to start off with some questions. She's promised to give us some answers. Vanessa is my co-host. Vanessa, say hi. And she'll be helping me with the questions and co-hosting. We also have Danita Moist with us. That's my mother-in-law, Vanessa's mother.
Oh,
I see Diane and Terry have joined, and we are gonna let the horse out of the pasture. So let's get started here. Michelle.
Hey,
hey,
Michelle.
Diane.
Hey.
Hi, Diane.
got so excited when I saw Michelle.
Yeah, we're all excited to have her. Okay, Michelle, I'm going to start with three of my favorite questions.
All right.
Some of you who know me already know how I conduct my work. So here's the first question for you. And she has not heard any of my questions, so we're doing this spontaneously. She's not one of those who wants to be prepared and nix questions and all that. First question is, who are you?
My gosh. It's like that classic interview question, and it makes my heart start beating really fast. Who am I?
And where do you want to be in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly.
No. Not you get to ask that later.
What are my strengths and my weaknesses? My weakness is that I'm loyal. No, just kidding. I think, like, first and foremost, what came to my mind tonight is that I am a Baba lover, and I think it's because I'm with people who know Baba, but that probably would come up normally. I am a daughter and a sister and a friend, and I'm an educator. These are just they're different roles that I play.
Yeah.
But I think at my core, I'm a person who deeply believes in service and is wants to be in service to the world around me. And I think that is pretty much the core of who I am and how I live my life and go day to day. So
I love
yeah.
it. Great. Second question is, who is Meher Baba?
That's a little bit easier. Meher Baba for me is God. And he is represents an infinite soul that comes to support and to help all of us just to get by day to day and to remember that love is real and love is actually the only thing that exists. And so for me, that's who Meher Baba is, which hasn't always been the case, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a second.
I won't spoil it.
The third question is, why do you feel that way? Oh, somebody's got
the mom.
You can't yell at a new mom.
Laurent, will you ask that question again?
Yeah. Third question is, in response to your answer about who is Meher Baba, why do you feel that way about Baba?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's a good question. It's kind of hard to answer because it's entirely a feeling for me about Baba. It's actually something logically where I start to think about it logically and it makes no sense. So it is fully a feeling I feel in my body. And I think in that way, that's how I know it's real, because it's something my mind can't explain, but yet I still feel every day that Baba is the foundation. And so having that makes me feel like it has to be he has to be who he is, because I can't actually explain to you why this person is God.
I love that. I love that answer. All right, so let's go back in time. You're not old from my point of view. You're quite a young woman, wonderful young woman. But can you go back in time with me to the time before you knew about Baba? Can you remember that time?
Totally. Easy.
Yeah. Tell me more about that time. What was your life like? Where were you? What were you doing? What was the framework into which the whole Baba experience came? So let's leave Baba out of the picture for right now. Give us the context of where you came from and what that whole life was like before Baba.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, and we were raised Catholic. That was my religion of choice, or not of choice, of birth. And but we were like culturally Catholic, I would say, more than like actually Catholic. Like we would go to church on holidays, and that I would go to like CCD like on Tuesdays, like one day a week after school, and we were just kind of like putting in the dues for the Catholicism. And like I do believe like why not, just in case, like if the Catholics are really right, I wanted to have like all of my sacraments and stuff, you know. I There was a time where I really wanted to go through all the major religions and all their get bat mitzvah and like do everything just in case. But um and so but my mom was like always really deeply spiritual, and so she was always kind of like looking for something um outside of the Catholic faith, because she had gone through a lot in the Catholic faith that made her kind of lose her faith. And so she um, and my dad were actually doing some marriage counseling with somebody who ended up being our introduction to Baba. And I started seeing her. Her name is Marlene Kiesler, when I was 13 as a counselor, after my mom was attacked by a dog. Spoiler, she's fine, but it was a really traumatic experience, and I watched it happen. And I was started to go to counseling and then doing some energy healing then with Marlene as well, who did both. But I think my life pre Baba was just kind of like, I probably saw Baba for the first time when I was like 13. Saw a picture of him because he was in Marlene's room, but had no, and she actually has a sadra. So she had a sadra of his like right next to me, but had no concept of Baba this whole time, and no wanting to know. Like I remember liking the quote because it's the picture of Baba where he's like smiling and he's in the pink sadra, and it's the real happiness lies in making others happy, and he has the garland. And so I always remember like thinking that was sweet, but also that quote also really makes me angry, because I'm also sometimes like, but what, don't you take care of put your own oxygen mask on before taking care of other people? So it was always like, I remember thinking about it a lot, but that was kind of my life pre-Baba. Like I was a teenager, I was trying to figure out my own identity, but I didn't really like feel that religion was the place for me. I never felt super close. But I was like, but I still prayed. Like I still prayed and stuff. It just wasn't to
Mhm.
like the Catholic God. I think I
Sure.
like Jesus a bit more, but like I didn't like the like if you sin you're bad basically type things. That was really hard for me.
Yeah, so perhaps it was more eclectic, where you were taking some of it and leaving the rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I always thought too, I think one of the things that I remember really thinking growing up before Baba, like there was a kid in my CCD class who she was half Jewish, half Catholic. Like she was born into like a half family. And I remember my CCD teacher when we were in like third grade, it was so vivid to me, telling her that she had to pick. Like she
Hmm.
couldn't be half and half.
Right.
Like, and I remember she was like my best friend in class. And I remember we just like, I mean, we were, you know, what, 8, 9, 10 years. I should know because I work in a school. I should know how old third graders are, but you know, we were still relatively young. And I remember we were so mad about it. Like, and I was like, how can that be right? Like, how can my friends of different faiths, of different backgrounds, like we had a babysitter who was Muslim, like how can they all be damned? Like, I don't get it. Like, and how can I be the only one who's going to be okay, you know? And
Yeah.
so that for me never sat quite right, even though there are elements of Catholicism I now feel closer to with Baba.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. So let me ask a few more questions, and I want to let Vanessa into the question asking. So I'll give her a little prompting. But so there must have been a time or a phase when you knew more about Baba, learned about Baba, but then Baba talks about conviction, right? So there's different types of conviction. There's intellectual conviction where it's more analytical, and then there's that feeling level conviction that you started talking about before, where you said it was such a deep feeling about Baba in your life. Can you bring us into that story where something shifted, right? You had heard or seen Baba in some way through Marlene, but where was the shift? What happened?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the first shift that actually happened was um it's a bit of a start and stop, but the first one where I remember it happening was when we visited the center so I was 15 and we were going on a college road trip for me. So I'm the oldest of four. So me and my two parents and my three younger siblings all got in a minivan and decided to go up and down the coast. We joked for a while that my parents almost got divorced on that trip. They did get divorced years later, but not on that trip, but it was close. But we were going to the University of Richmond, and my mom had heard about the center from Marlene, and she was like, why don't we just we're almost to Myrtle Beach. It's not true. It's like another 6 hours. Why don't we just go to this center? And we truly called that day, got there after 6 o'clock, stayed overnight, and left the next morning or left the next afternoon at 12 o'clock, 1
Wow,
o'clock.
that was a deep dive for 24 hours.
Super, super deep dive. And so I remember putting my headphones in and taking a walk the morning, the next, we got there overnight in the morning because I was feeling very angsty and mad at my family. And I remember listening to Ashley Simpson. If you guys don't know her,
Yeah.
that's probably a good thing because she's not the best musical artist. But I remember doing my angsty walk and walking around the center. And then I had a moment of I took my headphones out and I was just walking and I was like, wow, this is really peaceful. And that wasn't something that I have ever had. And then when I left the center, I remember feeling really emotional. My mom was saying had said that I was crying, which I don't consciously remember, but I remember this feeling of grief. And that was probably the first time where I was like, okay, there might be something here. But then I was a teenager. I didn't want to give my mom any satisfaction being right. So that went away pretty quickly.
Can I follow up on that question?
Yeah.
You mentioned the word grief just now, and I wasn't expecting that word.
Mm.
If it was grief, and let's just assume that's exactly where it was going,
Yeah.
what do you think you might have been grieving?
Oh, I feel every time I leave the center or leave people who know Baba, felt it just being together for Mani's birth last week. I feel this sense of just deep grief. It is this feeling of oh, I've had this chance to be with my beloved, and now I know it's not gone. I know it's not gone, but it's not as present. It's not, and this grief of Baba pulls you in, and then he just sends you off into your daily world. And it is I mean, I feel it after every youth Sahavas. I feel it after every young adult Sahavas, this deep, it takes me a few weeks to kind of get out of it, honestly, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the power of knowing that I had everything in the world, and then knowing that I have to find that in myself outside of those spaces and places and people.
I love that answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple more, and then I'll start opening it up more to other people. I was just thinking, in the last few days, even about what you just said, where Baba has a way of working with individuals, right? So, what I was thinking is that analogy of when he's fishing, he might catch a fish and then pull it in, and then instead of pulling it out of the water, let the line out again, so the fish goes far and far and far away, and then
Yeah.
he might reel it back in again. And there's a bit of that dynamic with Baba. Do you experience that? And how did that reeling in process happen for you?
Mhm. Yeah, I've never heard that metaphor in terms of Baba before. And yes, it's 100% how my experience has been. And I think it's what keeps me coming back. And then I do a lot of work in the world around healthy relationships. And that would not be one of them that I say to my kids is a healthy relationship. But there is something about it where even the pushing away is in such love and the pulling back. But I think for me, my first ever youth Sahavas, which I knew nothing about Baba, my mom bribed us, my brother and I, to go. I did not want to go. And
What'd you
I
get
used to
in the bribe? So hopefully something good.
I literally can't remember, but I'm pretty sure my brother got sneakers. But that's what I
Wow.
remember more. But I was really I just really didn't want to go. I think I got a trip with I could go invite my friends to the beach or something like that. I could have whoever I wanted. Um, and so, but I remember being there and having this experience of like I was starting to kind of be reeled in and like it, but then I would like call my mom and I would just like tell her how horrible it was from the guest house, which is like horrifying. Now that I think about it, like I used to like tell her how she's a terrible person from like Dr. Gohair's bed that Baba slept in once. Which is also how I know God is real and not evil, because I would totally be like struck down by now.
Yeah, no lightning happened, no thunder, right?
Nothing happened. He just kind of giggled, I think, now looking back. But I remember like having this like huge deep experience in the barn program that we do on the last day of Sahavas with my brother Kevin. And then it's like as soon as we got on the plane to back home, it was like throwing me all the way out again. And I was like, done, hate this guy, never going back. And then I had a friend who like reached out to me the next year being like, do you want to be a worker while with me? And I was like, oh, that sounds nice. Like a friend. And like kept reeling in and out until like, well, actually still always like Margie knows this, like a month ago, I was like, I'm done with Baba. Like, I just like, I'm done with him. I'm
Yeah.
done with the community. I'm done with Baba. I was like, I'm, done with Sahavases. Like, I just like
Right.
was so
So,
done. And so I do think, and then he reels you back in,
so this analogy really does fit with you, right?
really, really very well. Yeah.
So he allows you, apparently, he allows you to swim as far away as you want. And like you use the phrase, I hate this guy. This guy was Baba in that sense,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Right. And then he'll allow you to swim as far away as you want until he feels maybe perhaps let's pull on the line a little bit and see how Michelle responds. Is that pretty
Yeah.
much what goes on?
Yeah. And
I
like
think that's
9 times out
amazing.
of 10, he pulls on the line and I like come swinging right back, like it's not.
Right. And from my point of view, it's not a lot of judgment, or like we said, there's no thunder and lightning and what have you been doing and why and all that. That's not there, is it?
Mm, no, I, don't- I think in every situation where I've done something that I know probably I should be judged for a little bit, Baba just like chuckles, like, like he just like chuckles to me. Like I remember once I got a really big message from Baba and because I'd asked him like, can I go for this thing? And he was like, it's not for this lifetime. And I was like,
Mm,
I was in the samadhi too. And I was like, okay, but like if I do, like, is that cool? And he was just like, I said what I said, like you
yeah.
can take it or leave it. And so, and like, he's still here.
Oh yeah.
And he
And
was right. It was not for this lifetime.
well, and Vanessa and I are writing a new book about love. We've been working on it really hard. And one of the chapters has this phrase from Baba that I absolutely love. And that's when people come to him for guidance or advice. And they're like, can I do this or that? And Baba's like, no. And here's why. And they're like, but Baba. And then they're like basically arguing with Baba about it. And then eventually he'll look at them and say, please yourself. And I thought that's such a
I love
beautiful
that.
response, because at that point he's basically washing his hands of your decision making. He's just like, hey, I gave you the guidance, so it's your call. And I love that phrase though, please
Yeah, please
yourself,
yourself.
because I think in that it's, well, we saw the opportunity, or I see the opportunity to please him, and then he's saying you're basically either pleasing you or you're pleasing me. That's what's going to happen here.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Okay, Vanessa, I know I've been talking a lot, and I saw you writing some notes. Perhaps you have a question for Michelle. She's probably trying to come off.
No, I was just thinking as you were, because you identified as an educator and you work with children so much, and I wanted to kind of inquire, like, how did, your like relationship with Baba kind of
Mm,
work with this role that you have with the children and
yeah,
educating them?
I love that question. I feel like Baba has so guided me to work with kids and like to work where I work in the world. Like I've asked Baba so many times if I can come work on center, if I should like just go and like to India, or if I should go to Australia and work at the abode or like something, and he's like, nope, like this is your work in the world. Um, and honestly, part of why why I wanted to work with kids so much, especially in the past like 10 years or so, was because I've been so involved in the youth Sahavas, and I I want to make a place for myself there forever. And the best way to do that is to be like, oh, I have a marketable skill that you guys need for future leadership of this program, which is somebody who knows kids and works with kids. There was a little bit of like a, this is how I can guarantee I don't age out situation for the youth Sahavas, which is so funny because if you told 15-year-old me that I would still be involved with the youth Sahavas at 32, I would have actually laughed you like off off the street. So I feel like kids are the most beautiful, beautiful way to connect with God. I think what I love about children, and I'd say children even of all ages, like through high school, like people who are still like dependent on somebody else, right? The people who are still like young and dependent on somebody else, they're unguarded in a sense. They are still learning. There's this hope and optimism about the world and what the world could be. And it's just so, for me, it's just so Baba, and I loved when I started to come to Baba more, all the stories I would hear about how he was with kids and how he treated children. And I was like, oh, this so makes sense to me, like why I am called to this like childlike play, this behavior. And I work at a very like non-religious school. I can never remember if it's secular or non-secular, which it always confuses me which one is like religious or not.
Oh yeah.
And I like have a little pictures of Baba in my office that are kind of like understated, just kind of like there. And some of the kids have heard about the podcast that Margie and I have. And so like sometimes I know some of my students have like listened to it, which is like, like I don't bring it up to them. I'm not trying to like, convert anybody, but it's just kind of there and how I live. And so it's always really interesting to me to like bring Baba into that work too, because it's just like, I think for a lot of kids, they're looking on like self-discovery. And so what I just try to do, I guess I'm getting off topic, but what I just try to do with my work with them is just like live who I am and know that that's living Baba's like message in the world as much
That's
as I
great.
can.
That's great.
But it is, I just think like, I know people really don't like kids and especially teens, but I love them. And I just think like, if you can like be yourself with a kid, like that's all they want. They just want you to be who you are. And that's how I feel like Baba was, for everybody. He met them where they were. He was like himself and he like challenged them when they needed to be challenged, but also knew when to step back. And that like, I feel like is like the goal of how I want to live my life too. And it's been just like this beautiful, like my work is so hard and I'm so exhausted by it. And I'm on a leave this month to take care of myself. But it is also just like, I know that like I could never go back to like not working with kids
Right.
because it's so my Baba calling.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. Can I follow up on Vanessa's question? Is that okay, love? So it sounds like, but you can correct me here, Michelle. Sounds like it's been roughly 15 years of your journey with Baba. Let's just, say that. If you want to make a different number, that's fine
That's
too.
perfect.
Okay. And then that's like 2 7-year cycles. That's not a short amount of time. Some of us have known about Baba longer. It doesn't really, for me, that doesn't matter. It's just all about your personal relationship with Baba. So my question isn't so much about the time, it's about the shift. How has it shifted over, 15 years for you?
Yeah. Great question. I think because I've been in kind of that push, the reeling in, reeling out with Baba, it took, I would say the first like 5 years of of knowing Baba, it took about 5 years for it to drop in. And I like don't remember when exactly it did. It was sometime between my like first and third worker wallet experience year at Sahavas where I was and it came through service. And then all of a sudden I was like going to the lagoon cabin on my own, like I was like not just like doing the motions at programs, like I was like wanting to seek out that space with Baba. And I think now how I describe Baba is like sometimes it's almost hard because I don't feel like I'm consciously thinking of him enough, but it's because he's just so foundationally like me that I don't know how that I like I just know he's always there. And like I can see 1, 2, 4, like I can see like 7 pictures of Baba from where I'm sitting in my tiny bedroom in my apartment right now, 8. Like there's just so many pictures. There's like everything. So like I do kind of just surround myself with Baba, but I think sometimes like what felt really present at the beginning is I was consciously like had to think about Baba, and I was seeking him out, and I was hoping to like connect with him, and I was like trying to go to the center all the time. And now it's just so much more a natural part of my life. Like I go to the center on a regular basis for Sahavas and for other events, and I have photos of Baba, and I take his name when I like stub my toe, like versus like having to remind myself. But in some ways, like I like, as I'm talking about it, I've been realizing recently I've been feeling a lot of guilt because I feel like I'm not doing enough for Baba. Like I'm not like active enough for him, of remembering him. And then I'm like, I have literally Mani's book is in my bed right now because I've been like reading it every night before bed, and it's like in my bed and like all this stuff. So I think I'm in the age of like, oh, he's just so connected to me, but sometimes in that so connection, it doesn't feel like that like overwhelming, like, oh, I just feel Baba so much. It's just kind of just always there, which can sometimes feel, I guess, kind of mundane or boring, like, which is silly.
No, I love what you're saying. I really do. Vanessa, did you have more questions?
Yeah, I wanted to know because I know you had shared with me when I just saw you recently that you did make a trip to Maribad,
Yeah.
and I kind of wanted to know like that journey of like how did that come about, and how did that shift your relationship
Oh
with
God,
Bob?
that was such a wild ride. I like to describe Maribad as like the place that shakes. This is for me, shook me up, and like the Mayher Center is like what like calmed me down. Although recently that hasn't been the case. Recently, every Baba's shaking me up everywhere I go. Um, I so when I was 25, I'm 32 now. When I was 25, I knew that I'd known for years that I'd wanted to be in education since I graduated college, but I took a job, and then I knew it was time. I actually went to Sahavas. I remember telling one of my new friends at work, hey, by the way, I go to this camp every summer. I always come back wanting to quit my job, but like, don't worry. Like, I'm not like, I never do it. I just every summer. And this summer I came back and I was like, Jackie, I'm quitting. She was like, no, you told me you do that. Like, you can't actually do it. And I did. Um, sorry, this is an aside, but it's so cute. She got me a bracelet when I left. She's like not religious, like an atheist. She got me a bracelet when I left because I'd also had Baba pictures in my desk there, at this very corporate recruiting firm, that said, "Don't worry, be happy." And she gave it to me. She's like, "Did you know that was a Mayor Baba quote?" And I was like, I did know that, and it's so sweet. So what I love is that she was Googling Mayor Baba quotes and reading probably these like really dense ones, and then found the "Don't worry, be happy," which is just so sweet. Like, um, so anyway, so I quit my job, and because I wanted to move into education, but first I wanted to travel. And part of that is I had never been to Maribad, and I was like, well, like to be a legitimate Baba lover, you have to like go to Maribad. That's what I told myself. I was like, I'm not real. So I actually just tried to one up everybody. So in the span of 3 months, I first went to Avatar's Abode in Australia. And then I went to India and I went to Maribad. And then I came back and I went to the Mayor Center. And it was so special. Vanessa knows the story. I actually had my first love in Maribad, which was definitely Baba just throwing a wrench into me remembering him and trying to like, not get distracted by other things. But it was like, I went through my first love, and then I actually went back to Maribad. So I was there for New Year's, and I went back for Baba's birthday unexpectedly because I was like ready to move to India and like live my life there and be in love. And then I went through my first heartbreak because I was like, oh wait, this is not the thing in Maribad. And I just think that is the coolest thing ever. Like that Baba, like again, that push and pull, like, but like he like filled me up. It was such a beautiful experience where I did feel like I felt so much Baba, but it was also really busy, and like it was a busy time of year. The samadhi was not like what I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have like time for meditation, and instead I was like timed and rushed out, and I didn't know not to step on the threshold, and like so I was like yelled at, and like I brought my bag in, so I was yelled at. Like it was just like a really chaotic experience. But he like kept giving me these little moments of just like having time to myself. Like I would sit in the little tin hut like next where Baba's stretcher is, and I'd be the only person there, where there was like hundreds of people outside, and I would be in there for like 20 minutes by myself. And when I went back for Baba's birthday and my heart was breaking, there were just days where the samadhi was just empty. And I was just like in the samadhi by myself. Like, and I just was like, these are these moments where Baba just keeps like giving me like faith. And then I just want to share this one moment because I think this is why I went to Mehrabad. So I was having a really tough time because I was going through all these like emotions, you know, I hadn't had like love before. I hadn't dated anybody before. So I was like really like kind of like a child going through some of that, or like a teenager. And so it was like really emotional for me. And I was just feeling a lot. And I was also feeling then like really alone in a lot of ways. And so I was in that little tin room, and I just started like crying. Like I was just like having this moment of like being there with Baba, but also feeling like so overwhelmed. And then also feeling like unseen, like, you know, like, and this woman who I'd never talked to, never really even seen before, she came up to me and she like in silence, like looked at me, and I like nodded because there's like some sort of unspoken thing. And she put her hand on my forehead just for a few moments, and I closed my eyes and she closed her eyes. And then we like both like nodded and she walked away. And I had this, because part of it too was like people were talking about these amazing experiences they had had with Baba, like they saw him and they were like visions and walking with him, and that is just not how I interact with Baba. And I got in that moment that Baba comes to you through other people. Like that is that exact like message. Like I come to you through others. And the next day, and like she was in the breakfast line and she was like, "Hi, I'm so sorry. Like, I hope that was okay. Like, I've never ever done anything like that before." She was like, she was I think like a Persian woman. And she was just like, "I've never ever done anything like that before. But like Baba just told me like that to give you a blessing." And so, and I was like, Baba told me that, you know, like it was just this really sweet moment. And then I never saw her again, you know, it was just like, and I think that's why I went to Mehrabad, for that like message of like, even when I'm in doubt of Baba, and I feel this now to this day, like even like a month ago where I was done with Baba again, I then remembered the people that I love. But, you know, like I called Margie, you know, who's my Baba person who we do a Baba podcast about. And, you know, and that's like, oh wait, Baba still exists. Even if sometimes I'm mad at him, he's in other people, and I can sometimes see that even better.
Bob was not done with you.
No, unfortunately. No, just kidding. Fortunately.
Vanessa, do you have more questions? Because I did see Diane and Terry's hand go up.
Not right now.
Okay, Diane and Terry, you want to give it a whirl?
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
This question came up when you were talking about being a worker walla
Mm,
while you were kind of agnostic about Baba.
totally.
So I've never been to a youth Sahavas. I don't know how much Baba is talked about, but being in that kind of, you know, a foot here and a foot there, how did you work with that with kids who were probably looking to you for direction? And did you see yourselves in them and their confusion and their
Totally.
quest?
Totally. Yeah. So the worker wallas, for those of you who haven't been to a Sahavas before, are basically like the grunts of the Sahavas experience. I mean, there was one year where I literally dug a trench around the art tent we set up because it was raining so much. And I literally was like, this is my spiritual services. I'm digging a literal trench right now. And so we do all the like logistics and setup and cleanup for every event at the Youth Sahavas. And so in that, it's actually like a really, I think, the perfect place for people who are like kind of on the fence about Baba, or like are still learning, because it's less interaction with the kids. You still get some like at meals and stuff like that, but it's really more of just like, what is the experience of being in complete selfless service? And if you don't believe you're doing it for Baba, you're doing it for the event, right? So you're doing it for kids who are coming to have some sort of retreat. So that was like helpful. The other thing is that, so I think in that way, like I was able to like just throw myself into the practicalities, which does help me a lot sometimes when my mind is occupied doing the, you know, the trench digging and the setting up of chairs and taking down of chairs and moving stuff around. I think my body was able to kind of like kind of pick up on stuff some more. My energy was able to pick up on stuff some more. And so we definitely would talk about Baba in like our team meetings. And I've actually led the Worker Walla crew for the past 10 years or so. So we like, we talk about Baba, but it is a lot of like, it's kind of like, it's like a tricky way to get to know Baba, because it's not about like talking about and like going into deep discussion, but it's more about, we're gonna like we act as center staff for the week. We clean, we rake, we make sure the lagoon cabin is like cleaned in the proper way, as the barn. We like have these like the experience of being in physical service rather than like getting to talk about the intellectual. And I think that's why I liked it a lot more than being a camper for myself, because camper felt like hard, because it was like you'd have to go to, like, you didn't have to, everything was optional, but like if I was to go to a discussion group, I might have to talk, and like I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I would like to like play. I spent my whole time as a camper in the art tent just making art, because I was like, that feels manageable for my anxiety in my brain. And so that's kind of, I think, why the Worker Wall has really helped me. And I made friends. And then through my friends, they would start to talk about stuff with Baba, and I would learn more about like stuff with Baba, and I would ask people questions. And then I think with the kids is like something I still do, and I've always sought out, is like at meals, I would always try to find the kid who was like a little quieter. And I would always just like go and sit with them and like check in with them and just like ask them if they like to read, or, ask them, whatever. And I think that that is how, like that's my belief for how, when people are coming to Baba, is like, not, especially young people, is like, we're made to be skeptics. Young people are made, teens especially are made to be skeptics. And so if you try to like drown them in information, it's going to make people run for the hills, especially in this age of like, you hear about cults and you hear about different things, like you're going to like, and so for me, what I always tried, my approach was, and this is because this is how people approached it when I was a camper at Sahavas, is like, just who are you? Like, and then if you want to like Baba, cool. If not, if you have questions, great. If not, let's talk about your favorite TV show, or let's talk about whatever. And then I think people allowing me to have that experience while still holding true to what they believed about Baba, I think is like what helped me to like be able to own how I feel about Baba and discover how I felt about Baba without it being like pushed down. I guess if that makes sense.
It does. And I see Rich Sander put his hand up. You want to ask your question, Rich?
Yeah, Michelle, one question. So what if you get someone who's there and you think they actually have problems? How do you kind of coach them,
That's a
especially
great
about
question.
Baba?
Yeah, problems in like the way of like they're just struggling in life, or like around like thinking about, okay, struggling in life. Yeah, I mean, it happens so much all the time, especially more and more, I think, both in my work in the world, but especially at the Sahavas, it just, I think Baba brings, it's like actually really beautiful. Like he brings kids who are like, who need a safe place to land, like who are experiencing things in the world that honestly, none of us could even, or many of us couldn't conceptualize what it's like to be a young person in today's world with like the stuff that's going on. And so he brings these kids who are a lot of them like who are going through some really intense stuff, like, and a lot of them who are happy-go-lucky, totally amazing kids, and a lot whom are in between, but I think for me, when I'm talking to somebody, especially a young kid who I don't know exactly what their relationship with Baba is, like when I'm at Sahavas, is like, I'll kind of put some things in as like, oh, there's this really cool Baba quote, but instead of saying, well, Baba says, don't worry, be happy. Like, oh, I really like this quote, like putting it more on like me rather than like having to be like a preacher about like you should do this or you should do that. And more of like, I have this quote on my mirror. So, and I remember actually talking to a camper who was like feeling like kind of like, I don't really know if I have friends. I'm feeling kind of lonely. And I was like, I actually feel that a lot at Sahavas. Like even now, like Margie and I have talked about this a lot. Like I feel like people don't remember. Like I just have this like fear because I came so late in the community that nobody's gonna remember me. Like that's just like my big fear forever actually in life is that people are gonna forget me, or that I'm gonna be alone. And I remember talking to a kid about that once, and Baba has that "I want you to make me your constant companion" quote. And so how I'll do is I'll speak from my own experience. Like, when I'm feeling lonely, like I think about that quote because it really helps me, because like what I would say is whether or not it's true, at least it makes me feel better in that moment. Like, you know, and like, I could be wrong. Baba could not be who he says he is, but he also says that that's okay. You know, if we take him to not be who he says he is, you know? And so for me, it helps me to know that he is my constant companion. And so that's kind of the way that I like to approach things. Cause I think all of us, when somebody tells us we should do something, or, you
Yeah.
know, for those of us who grew up Catholic, there was a lot of shoulds in the, like, you should love God in this way or should be like God in this way. And I think that ultimately none of us actually know what Baba wants or like thinks about us and our individual incarnations in this lifetime. But what we can do is interpret his guidance. And I think the baseline of his guidance is like always comes back to love. And so like if we're acting in love and acting with each other in love instead of from the place of shoulds or this is good, this is bad, I think that's the way we should be. And I think it just like makes me think a lot about like when I'm working with young people too, about like some of them like have a hard time understanding a lot of the stuff that Baba did during his incarnation as well. Like, but especially if you think about like separation of like men and women and like things like that are just like culturally not our experience nowadays. And so I find that those are some of my most favorite conversations with the kids too, is like when we're dealing with like, how do you reconcile aspects of Baba's life that like don't feel like they fit in 2024 you know, society, and then what do you do with that? And then that's for me where I come back to like, and I try to bring people back to like, okay, but like what's like the baseline, the beads on one string, like that feels like really baseline, like it's love, right? And so how do we act from that, even if our practices might seem different?
I love that. I love your answers.
Thanks.
Vanessa, you have something?
Yeah, I was just for the viewers, I don't know if everybody knows, but Michelle comes from a very large family. And I know that her journey coming to Baba was also shared with her brother.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think there's so many questions I have around that, but one of them is sort of like, okay, what was it like to have a sibling and watch them go through their journey finding Baba, but also then how did your friends adjust and your parents adjust, and like, how did that all evolve?
Totally. Well, it was really special. So I'm the oldest of four. So my brother Kevin and I got to go to that first Sahavas together. And then I was then a worker because I went my first. I think why Sahavas was also hard is I was a senior. So I was with kids who had known each other for years, like at that point, and there were some cliques. Like it's still teenagers. Like it's not this perfect. You know, you've probably gone to a center or to a Baba event and had some feelings with people there. Like not all happy go lucky all the time. You know, even though we love Baba. And so my brother and I actually got like super, super close that trip. Like we were, you know, we were tolerators of each other, you know, at that point. We'd been close growing up, but then, you know, I was kind of a lame kid in high school and he was kind of cool, you know, and so I was, you know, his like kind of weird older sister. But we became so close at Sahavas, primarily between like from like what we would probably call now trauma bonding and mutual like hatred of our mother, is what really brought us together. And I tell my mom now, like, she like, you know, sometimes wonders if she like shouldn't have forced us to do a lot, because my mom has a very forceful personality. And I was like, well, some things maybe, yeah, you like could have been a little nicer about, but Sahavas, that was the good thing to force us on. I'm very grateful that you like made us go. And so I think having my brother kind of like having us both be able to have these experiences where we actually got along for 5 days, and that we were able to actually like the last day in the barn, we were listening, they were singing Buzz's song Tonight, and everybody was singing the song Tonight. And Kevin and I just like wept. Like we were just like holding each other and just wept. And we have never had a moment like that since, or like since then. Like it was like the most special moment. And then I kept going to Sahavas's, Kevin kept going. And then like I have another younger brother, and then my youngest sibling, David, is non-binary and uses they, them pronouns. And so eventually Eric came, and then David came. And then there was like 2 years, I think, where we're all four of us were there at like in different worker roles. And it was the most special thing. And Eric and David, by the time they were old enough to be able to go, were so excited to go to Sahavas because they like loved hearing our stories, some of which were not like probably what I, as a Sahavas committee member, would sell people on coming to Sahavas, but like the teenage boys who likes to play pranks on each other during camp. But a lot of it, like, I think they just got that we came back glowing every year. And that was what was really special. And my mom was just so happy because she was right. But also because she loved Baba, like she was all in. And my dad loved Baba because, and still does, because we love Baba and we found something that made us really happy. Like, and my dad, I'd say he's like a liker. Like he'll always text me when I'm at the center and like at Sahavas and be like, hope you're having a good time with Baba. But he's not like a, a Baba guy, you know, he's not independently doing anything with Baba. And my friends, my family was the weird one. So we were already doing like energy healing and stuff. So this was just like another layer on the like weird McKeevers and what they were doing. But like at the same time, like we were always like the house everybody wanted to spend time with. I think we were just really authentic. And I think Baba helped bring that authenticity out more and more. And now I've had friends who've like come with me to the center just for fun. Like they're not Baba folks or whatever, although they usually take like a picture home with them or something. And I think that that's like for me, like the
Michelle,
way
at your house, it was about the love.
I was about the love. Yeah, Rick knows. Rick used to be at my house a
Mm-mm.
lot. It was so about the like chaos and the love and the like realness. And I think that Baba just brought that out more and more. But I will say, watching my siblings go through like their experience at Sahavas and like of knowing and learning about Baba is like the most special thing to me. Like it is like it's like we've had a lot of issues over the years, my siblings and I. We've grown apart in different ways, we've grown back together. And it just makes me grateful that we've had those experiences, that I know that we can remember those like tender moments together. And yeah. And my brother met his wife at Sahavas and they're married and have a baby now, like, you know, a 4-month-old, and, you know, it does stuff. And it's a beautiful, and my youngest sibling, David, and I still go back every year as workers now. And it's like, it's really, really sweet just to see that growth. And like, I think overall, just like that transition felt natural. Just felt like another thing we picked up, the McKeevers picked up, and it stuck with us. Although
Awesome.
my dad's family did not feel that same way. So I should say the other side, the McKeevers, the very Catholic, like traditional, like I wouldn't say traditionally because they break a lot of the rules, but the culturally Catholics have a tough time. But my aunt, who kind of hates Baba the most, it's so funny, you guys, because her grandmother name that she chose is Baba, which I think is the funniest stuff. Sorry, funniest thing in the whole entire world, because she is like very Catholic, very much like goes to church all the time, worked in a Catholic school her whole life, and like that's not a name anybody else in our family has. Like it's not like a common like grandma name that our family uses. She is the only one, and she goes by Baba, and I think it's amazing.
Oh, thanks for sharing. That was beautiful.
I have a last question for you myself, but I also want to interject something that you just said, Michelle, that I think is relevant. When Baba first came west and was in England in 1931, he stayed at Kitty Davies' house, and Kitty Davies' parents, she was still living at home with her parents. And so Baba wanted to meet her parents. It was very important to him. So they were some of the first people in the West to meet Baba. And Kitty's mother, I forgot her first name, but Kitty's mother said to Baba, how shall I pray? And Baba said, pray with my picture before you. And she said, but Baba, I always pray with a picture of Jesus. And he said, then pray to the picture of Jesus. It's the same. That's what he said. I
I
thought
love
that's
that.
so beautiful.
I love that too, because if I may add something to
Yeah.
that, the moment where I think I fully like let go of some of my resistance of like intellectually getting Baba was actually from something Kitty said. We were watching this video at one of the Sahavases of just like an interview with Kitty, and in it she says something along the lines of, I'm going to butcher it a bit, I'm sure, if humanity had listened when Buddha came, you know, or when Jesus came, or when, you know, Krishna came, there would be no need for a Meher Baba. But because we still are growing and learning, Meher Baba has come. And I remember, like, I mean, it was just like a movie they played, you know, it was like very innocuous. Like I was standing in the back of the meeting place. I think it was on my way out, honestly, to go do something. And I heard that and I was like, oh, duh. Yeah. Like that makes so much sense. Like we need the reminders, you know? And I thought, so I think that's so beautiful. Like, you know, like and I feel closer to Jesus, so much closer to Jesus. Like I love Jesus so much more now because of Baba. Like I just like, I'm like, oh, this is who I wanted Jesus to be my whole childhood, you know, and who Jesus was, but not in the constructs of the way my churches and religious groups were organizing me. Not saying that there's not possibilities in them to get that. It just wasn't the case. It didn't fit for me.
Yeah. So one last question, if you would, and then I will stop the recording at the top of the hour. That doesn't mean we have to leave the session together, but just so that we have it for posterity, right? And we can stay as long as we want. The last question I have, and Vanessa, you can have the last question too if you want, and anybody can have last questions. But the last question I have is, knowing that this recording will be available probably from tomorrow onwards or soon after, and that some people will watch this maybe years in the future. What would you like to say to them? And just be free. There's no real question other than what would you say?
I think my biggest thing that I would like to say to anybody listening, those of you listening right now, but anybody watching this, is that it's okay to be exactly where you are in your journey with God or not God or Baba or anything. Like it is not, there's no place you have to get to. There's no place you have to be. Like exactly where you are is just how you're going to be loved. I think we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be the perfect Baba person, the perfect Catholic, the perfect atheist, the perfect, you know, all of the perfect. But in reality, unless you know, I don't know everybody's journey, but like none of us are perfect masters probably on this call, or if we are, maybe we should think about doing something other than Zoom, but besides Laurent, of course, but we're none of us, except, and maybe baby Monty, like she's pretty perfect right now. But I think that it's okay to just like love God or not love God in whatever ways you're coming, because like love exists outside of the constructs of God, outside of the constructs of Baba. And the other thing I would say is loving Meher Baba as God is a pretty sweet way to do it. Like, so if you're wanting a God to love, if you're wanting, you know, like somebody to pray to, like I think he's like kind of the great one to do it to and to do it for.
I love it. Yeah. All right, let's open it up. Diane and Terry, I see a hand.
Literally a hand. When you would bring friends with you who weren't Baba lovers,
Yeah.
and they would leave and remain non-Baba lovers.
Yeah.
Did you ever like wonder why
Totally.
Baba didn't snatch them? Or
I was like, damn, maybe this isn't real. Like, you know, like they didn't stay with Baba. Like maybe I'm crazy. Like that's like a real honest thing in my head was there. But I think that's like ultimately why I said what I just said, because like I don't actually believe there's one path like to God. My experience has been that Baba is the easiest path, you know, and the least dogmatic and kind of the most natural is what I would say, is what it's felt like for me. But I think that, you know, it's funny, like I think she might still be in my house watching a Christmas movie. My best friend from high school was one of the people who went with me to the center. We went for spring break a couple years ago with another one of our best friends from high school. And like, we've loved it. They had a great time. Like, and we did not go to a single program. I'll tell you that. We did not do a single thing besides walk around. We ordered we like left center once or twice, which I never do if I'm there with anybody else, but we like got Chinese food and ate it in our cabin. We played games. And I think for me, that was just like how I wanted the experience to be. Like I wasn't trying to bring them somewhere so that they had this experience so that they could get it and they could be inundated with Baba. Like I kind of just wanted them to be able to share with them what it feels like to be in a place where you're so held, even if you don't know why. And I think that's something that they would say that they experienced. Even my friends who I brought, two of my friends were very, very atheist, like very, very atheist, like hate God, religion stuff. I brought to the center because we were doing a road trip to Florida and we like took a walk through the center on our way home. And they were just like, it's so peaceful. And I was like, that's enough. That's enough just for people to know that there's a space and a place on earth where you can kind of feel like you are at peace and at ease. And it's okay if that doesn't change things. I mean, I do get a little smirk on my face, like my friend Angela bought like a little Baba photo, when we went to Sherry-Yar, took it home. My friend Jen says she didn't, but we were just talking about it. And I said, you definitely did. I remember you had it up on your bulletin board. Like I get there's a little smile. My friend who I was talking about who made me the bracelet, the Don't Worry, Be Happy bracelet, got me that. She actually was taking my old office when I left my job. And I had this picture, another version because I had to buy a new one of Baba on my little, like above my computer. And she was like, I was like, do you want me to leave anything for you? Like in here, whatever. And she was like, can you just leave that picture? Like, he just looks happy.
Wow.
And so I get a little smirk, like there's a little part of me that's like, yeah, got you. But then there's also like, ultimately, like my goal in life is for like every person to feel like they are loved and held in love. It's my hope for myself that I can like continue to feel that more and more. And so if I can like help people guide to that experience, and it doesn't mean that they then know and love Baba, it's totally cool. Like most of my people don't, and so I think then maybe I'm just the person to help them feel held for a little bit. And then they can understand me, I think, a little bit more too, that down the line. Like they can know why it's, my friend, it's actually interesting. My friends who have been to the center with me understand why, even though I come back exhausted from Sahavas and like kind of torn up because it's like hot and I'm running through the woods for a week and like I have like scratches and bruises everywhere and sunburn and bug bites. But they understand why I do it more than like people who haven't been there with me. Like they understand, even if I'm dead exhausted, why I need to have that week there.
Yeah.
That was a long answer, but
No, I love
sometimes I do feel like, damn, Baba, come on, bring somebody in. I hope that my partner, whoever they be, I don't think it's going to be a Baba person off the bat, but my hope is that grows with whoever my future partner is, that I will be able to like have a shared, at least like of Baba, not love.
a shared like.
Yeah. Like I'll tolerate a like what my dad does, where he's just like, I mean, it really is so sweet. Like my dad's like, I hope you're like being with Baba this week is like really lovely for you. Like it's just so like cute, where he just like takes off his Eagles jersey and puts on his spiritual hat for a second, and it's like, and Rick knows my dad a bit too. Like, like he wants the same thing that I do, where people just feel loved and seen, and so he's glad to have that. So if I can find more people in my life and like bring people in my life to just understand what it feels like to be with Baba, then even if they don't really believe it for themselves, I'm cool with that.
So, Michelle, I loved all your answers and all your sharing. I think you're extremely honest, real, natural. So wonderful to have you on Sahavas for Everyone. So I just want to thank you for everything you shared. We are going to end the recording, but I'm not going to close the meeting. So let me just do that so that people have it. Should we say goodbye to people with an avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai? Can we do that? Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Mayor Baba
Baba Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar Mayor Baba Ki Jai.
Hey.